Athens, 399 BC. An old man sits in a prison cell, holding a cup of poison he is about to drink voluntarily, because a jury of 500 of his own neighbors just voted that he was too dangerous to stay alive. Not dangerous with a sword, not dangerous with an army. This man never conquered a single city in his life. He was dangerous with questions. His crime, officially, was disrespecting the gods and corrupting the youth. His actual crime was walking up to the most powerful, most respected men in Athens, and in front of a crowd, asking them to define words like justice and courage, and then calmly proving they had no idea what they were talking about. He never wrote a single book. He never charged a single fee. He didn't even own a decent pair of shoes. And he still became the most influential thinker in the history of Western civilization. This is Socrates. And the most Socrates thing about his entire story is that he'll be dead by the end of this video, still refusing to give a straight answer. Socrates is born around 470 BC in Athens, son of Sophroniskes, a stonemason, and Phenerete, a midwife. Not rich, not noble, just a solid, respectable working-class family. He gets the standard Athenian boyhood package: music, poetry, physical training. Some accounts even have him working stone alongside his dad for a while, and hold on to that because a guy who spent his youth literally chipping away at rock to find the shape underneath is going to spend his adulthood doing the exact same thing to people's arguments. As a young man, he gets swept up in the hot new intellectual trend of the day, natural philosophy, basically, physicists trying to figure out what the universe is made of. And Socrates dives in, studying thinkers like Anaxagoras. And then he does something that will define the rest of his life. He gets bored of it, not because it's wrong, but because it's the wrong question. Who cares what the sun is made of, he essentially decides, if nobody can tell me what a good life is made of? So he pivots, hard, from what is the universe to what does it mean to be a decent human being? Which sounds simple. It is, technically, the single most disruptive career change in the history of philosophy. He lives as an ordinary Athenian citizen, religious festivals, civic duties, the works. Marriage-wise, some sources claim an earlier wife named Myrto, though the details are shaky. What we know for sure is his marriage to Xanthippe, who becomes ancient Greece's most famous nagging wife stereotype, sharp-tongued, endlessly irritated with her husband, a comedy trope for centuries. Which, to be fair, if your husband spent every single day loitering in the town square arguing with strangers for free instead of earning money, you'd probably develop an edge too. They have 3 sons together: Lamprocles, Sophroniscus, and Menexenus. But before Socrates the philosopher, there's Socrates the soldier. And this part surprises everyone who only knows him as the barefoot old man asking annoying questions. As a hoplite, a heavily armored infantryman, he fights in some of Athens's brutal campaigns against Sparta. At the siege of Potidæa, he's noted for enduring miserable conditions without complaint, and reportedly saves the life of a young aristocrat named Alcibiades. Remember that name, it's going to come back and bite him. At the Battle of Delium, when the Athenian line breaks and everyone's running for their lives, Socrates retreats calmly, deliberately, weapons still in hand, radiating so much unbothered composure that enemy cavalry apparently decide he's not worth the trouble and leave him alone. So the founder of Western philosophy was also, it turns out, an actual battle-tested war veteran. Try fitting that on a marble bust. This is Socrates. And the most Socrates thing about his entire story is that he'll be dead by the end of this video, still refusing to give a straight answer. Eventually, Socrates settles into the role that makes him famous, hanging out in the agora and the gymnasiums and asking people questions. Just questions. That's the whole method. No lectures, no fees, no scrolls to sell. He walks up to someone, a general, a poet, a respected craftsman, and asks something disarmingly simple, like, "What is courage?" And the person answers confidently because obviously they know what courage is, they're a general. And Socrates just keeps asking follow-up questions, gently, patiently, until the guy's own definition collapses in on itself in front of a growing crowd of Athens's biggest gossips. This move gets a name, the Socratic method, and it is, without exaggeration, one of the most quietly devastating pieces of intellectual technology anyone in the region had ever seen. Here's the part that makes it even funnier. Socrates insists, constantly, that he's not doing this because he's smart. His whole public persona is built on one phrase: I know that I know nothing. According to Plato's Apology, this becomes almost literal. His friend Cheerophon travels to the oracle at Delphi and asks the priestess a direct question: is anyone wiser than Socrates? And the oracle answers, no. Socrates hears this and, being Socrates, does not take the compliment. He becomes deeply confused because he genuinely believes he knows nothing, so he sets out to disprove the god by finding someone wiser than himself. He goes around interviewing politicians, poets, skilled craftsmen, the most respected people in the city, and finds, over and over, the same pattern. They're genuinely excellent at their actual jobs, but they've quietly convinced themselves that being good at pottery or poetry or politics means they also understand justice, virtue, and the meaning of life. They don't. And Socrates' grand, humble conclusion is basically, okay, I get it now. I don't know anything either, but at least I know I don't know anything, and these guys don't even have that, which technically makes me the wisest man in Athens by forfeit. Incredible flex, disguised as modesty, the most confident possible statement, delivered in the tone of an apology. Naturally, young men love this. Plato, a promising kid from a wealthy family, becomes a devoted follower and eventually preserves basically everything we know about Socrates. The dashing, chaotic Alcibiades, the same guy from Potidea, becomes obsessed with him too. Socrates builds a small but passionate fan base of Athens' brightest, most ambitious youth. Powerful, established Athenians, by contrast, are considerably less charmed. Imagine being a respected 50-year-old statesman and some barefoot stonemason's kid corners you in public and makes you look like an idiot in front of your friends, repeatedly, for decades. It's not exactly a fast track to popularity. The city's most famous comic playwright, Aristophanes, cashes in on this resentment in 423 BC with his play The Clouds, which portrays Socrates as a ridiculous sophist running a school of dishonest rhetorical tricks, teaching kids how to argue their way out of paying debts and openly mocking the gods. This is, historically speaking, a pretty unfair caricature of the actual guy, but the joke sticks hard and plants a public image that will matter enormously 24 years later in a courtroom. Socrates mostly stays out of formal politics. Philosophy was the job, not office, but he doesn't stay out of it entirely, and the two times he does step in are the two moments that best explain who he actually was. In 406 BC, serving on the Athenian council, he's essentially the lone voice opposing an illegal mass trial of generals who lost soldiers in a storm after a battle. A trial the furious public wanted, laws be damned. Socrates says no, publicly, at real personal risk. Then, in 404 BC, under the brutal oligarchic regime known as the 30 Tyrants, he's ordered to help arrest an innocent man named Leon of Salamis for execution. Everyone understands refusing means death. Socrates simply goes home. Twice, when the entire machinery of Athenian power told him to go along with something unjust, he just didn't. No speeches, no rebellion, quiet, calm refusal, which tells you everything about how he's going to handle his own trial later, and it should honestly make him a hero. It doesn't, because those 30 tyrants included a man named Critias, one of Socrates' former associates, and Alcibiades, the golden boy Socrates once saved on a battlefield, later defects to Sparta during the war, an act of straight-up betrayal against Athens. Socrates never endorsed either man's crimes. Didn't matter. In the small, gossip-fueled world of ancient Athens, you're judged by your company, and his company had just helped tear the city apart. By 403 BC, democracy is restored in Athens, but the city is shaken, humiliated, freshly defeated by Sparta, and desperately looking for someone to blame for how everything went wrong. And there's this one guy who spent 30 years publicly humiliating the city's most respected men, hung out with two of the most notorious traitors of the era, and has already been mocked on stage as a corrupter of youth and mocker of the gods. In 399 BC, Socrates is formally charged. Impiety, not believing in the city's gods and inventing new ones, and corrupting the youth of Athens. He is tried before a jury of over 500 Athenian citizens, and this is the part where, if Socrates were a normal defendant, he would grovel, cry a little, maybe bring his kids in to look sympathetic, all completely standard Athenian courtroom tactics. This is not what happens. According to Plato's Apology, Socrates delivers what may be the single worst legal defense strategy in recorded history, on purpose. He tells the jury, essentially, that he has spent his life serving Athens by making its citizens think harder about virtue and truth, and that abandoning philosophy would betray both the city and the god who put him on this mission. He refuses to beg. He refuses to fake tears. He flatly states that if they let him go on the condition that he stop asking his questions, he would refuse the deal and keep doing it anyway. He's not defending himself to the jury, he's lecturing them. You can guess how 500 already annoyed Athenians took that. He's found guilty by what's believed to be a relatively narrow margin, meaning a good chunk of the jury either respected him or just didn't think death was necessary. Then comes the truly bizarre part of Athenian law. After a guilty verdict, the defendant gets to propose his own alternative punishment, and the jury picks between the prosecution's suggestion and his. The prosecution asks for death. Socrates, entirely straight-faced, suggests that given everything he's done for the city, the appropriate penalty is actually free meals for life at the public expense, the honor normally reserved for Olympic champions. The single most Socrates possible response to a death sentence, reframing it as an award ceremony. Eventually, under pressure from his friends, he offers a token fine instead. The jury, unimpressed by both the joke and the half-hearted backup plan, rejects it and sentences him to death by hemlock. Here's a detail that makes the whole thing even stranger. Because of a religious festival happening at the time, executions are legally paused, so Socrates ends up sitting in prison for several weeks, waiting to die, calmly discussing philosophy with his friends the entire time, as if he'd been sentenced to an extended office retreat rather than execution. His friend Crito, desperate, arranges an escape plan, bribed guards, a route out of the city, the whole thing ready to go. And Socrates says no. His reasoning, as Plato records it, is almost maddeningly principled. He's lived his whole life under Athens' laws, benefited from them, agreed implicitly to follow them by choosing to stay in the city, and it would be deeply hypocritical to obey the laws only when they're convenient and flee the moment they turn against him. Breaking the law now, even an unjust verdict, would undo everything he'd ever stood for. He'd rather die consistent than live as a hypocrite. Genuinely one of the most extreme commitments to personal principle in recorded history, and, depending how you look at it, either deeply admirable or borderline insane. On his final day, surrounded by his closest friends, Simmias, Cebes and others, Socrates does not spend his last hours in fear or grief. He spends them exactly the way he spent every other day of his adult life, having a philosophical conversation, this time fittingly, about the soul, about death, and about whether either of those things should actually scare anyone. Then the jailer brings the cup. Socrates asks, with what sounds like genuine curiosity rather than dread, exactly how the poison works and what he should do to make it take effect properly, getting practical instructions for his own execution like he's asking for cooking tips. He drinks it without hesitation, walks around the cell as instructed to help it circulate, and lies down. His friends, unlike him, are completely falling apart, weeping, distraught. Socrates, dying, tells them to knock it off and be composed, because this is genuinely the wrong way to send a man off. His very last recorded words are a request to settle a small debt. He asks Crito to sacrifice a rooster to the god of medicine, Asclepius, possibly a wry final joke about death being a cure for the disease of life, possibly just a mundane bit of unfinished business he wanted handled properly. Nobody's fully sure. Which, honestly, is the most on-brand possible way for this man to go, leaving even his own dying words open to interpretation and follow-up questions. He dies in 399 BC, calm, sober, and utterly unrepentant, surrounded by people who loved him and a city that had just voted, by majority, that he needed to disappear. In the immediate aftermath, several of his followers, Plato among them, flee Athens for a while, shaken and disillusioned by watching their teacher executed for the crime of asking questions in public. And here's the great irony that closes this whole story. Socrates himself never wrote a single word down. Not one book, not one essay, not one scroll. Everything we know about him, the method, the trial, the hemlock, the rooster, survives only because Plato, and to a lesser extent Xenophon, wrote it all down after he was gone. The man who spent his life proving other people didn't actually know anything left the writing to somebody else and let history sort out the argument. It worked out. He's remembered today as the father of Western philosophy, not for conquering a single city, not for founding an empire, but for redirecting an entire civilization's attention from what is the world made of to how should a person actually live. Every philosopher who came after him, starting with his own student, is essentially still responding to one barefoot man in a toga who wouldn't stop asking, "Yes, but what do you actually mean by that?" He never lost an argument, technically. He just usually proved nobody could win one, including himself. Which is, frankly, the most infuriating way to be undefeated.